Welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to talk about some modifications I'm doing to my 105 series Land Cruiser. So I've had the car for about 2 years, and in that time I've done a few modifications to the car. So we've added some solar on the roof, dual battery system from Red Arc, put in 2 extra batteries, some drawers in the back, and replaced a few rubbers around the suspension. Since then, I've started to experience some vibrations that are reverberating through the car when I go over some bumps. So what I did was I took the car down to a reputable suspension dealer who provided a paid report and some analysis on what's going wrong with the vehicle. I'll take you through the report line by line, but a hell of a lot of things came up which I wasn't expecting. I knew that there was something wrong with it, but not to this degree. So I'll just go through the report with you, and then we'll come back and talk about what we do next. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go through a copy of the report with you for the Land Cruiser. So this is a paid inspection, and they gave me a list of all the items that it failed on for the suspension and brakes. So to start off with, they said the front shocks are leaking and they require replacement. The front radius rod and bushes are split, require replacing. Front panhard rod, bushes moving on dry park. Front rotors were badly scored and the pads need replacing. Front wheel bearing or hub assembly was the swivel hub was leaking. Rear shocks leaking. Rear trailing arm bushes cracked. Rear sway bar and bushes, or the link brushes, are cracked and split and requires replacing. And finally, the rear rotors and pads were also down to minimum tolerance and they need replacing. So as you can see, the parts for all that to replace it all was about $2,500, that's Australian dollars, and the labour was $3,600, so a total of $6,208 to do all this work. Okay, so as you can see from the report, $6,000 is a hell of a lot of money, considering the car itself was purchased for around about $8,000, and I've probably done $2,000 worth of modifications, which includes $800 to replace some engine oil seals from the main agent Toyota. So I was a bit reluctant to spend anywhere near that. So what I did was I actually spoke to a friend of mine who's familiar with Land Cruisers and has the same car of his own. And he said that, you can get the parts online, you can do it yourself as long as you've got some basic knowledge. So I've got some basic knowledge, and I'll just say that I'm not a mechanic by any means. So if you're going to do this, you do it at your own risk. But I'm quite happy to take that risk, given it's quite simple, straightforward, and in my opinion, it's safe to do yourself. So what I did was I went on the internet and I looked for all the parts that were required. The suspension bushes, the rotors, the pads, and the shock absorbers, and I got the whole lot for around about $700. Had those delivered, and then last night we started to install some of the parts to the car. So I'm just going to go out now and show you what we did last night on the front suspension, and I'll show you in a bit more detail with the rear, because that's a bit more difficult, although it's all pretty simple actually, so it's quite easy to do. And then I'll come back and we'll summarise at the end and show you what's next on the agenda. Okay, so this is the 105 series. As I said, we did the front suspension last night, so I'll quickly show you that. So on this side, you can see the top there, you need to put a thread locker on to stop it coming loose. Basically one connection there, drop straight through. On this side where you can see it a bit more clearly. There you go, down there. Again, put some thread locker on. I have experienced them coming loose in the past when they've been tightened up with no thread locker. They do work loose, so make sure you do that. Okay, so we've already taken one of these out. I'm just on my lunch hour. This is how quick it is to do. I'm just going to show you how to do this because it was a little bit confusing, but there's basically a plate that bolts to the top that this suspension goes through. So two 14mm bolts on each side of there that you just pull out and the whole thing drops. At the bottom we've just got a single connection, so I'll go and show you the other side. But essentially this is shot. If you look here, the actual bush has perished, so it's almost metal on metal. So that was probably what all the vibrations were coming through the car. As it was going over bumps, it was transferring straight through to the frame. If you push the shock absorber down, you can tell that they're knackered. They're not going down very smooth, they're making noises, so they're pretty much shot and need replacing. I'm just going to go under and show you the other side, which hasn't been done yet, so you can see how to take these out. Okay, so this is the bottom. Just adjust the light so you can see. So this bolt here comes out 17mm, and then at the top you can see the plate. So two 13mm bolts, and they come out and the whole thing drops out. So literally within a couple of minutes you can take this out. Then all you need to do is just pull it off the bottom and compress the shock absorber up into the casing, and that'll give you the movement to pull it out. And that's pretty much it. Show you the removal process. And you can see that's all split. Okay. Breaker bar on that one. She's tight. So what I had to do with the other one is just got it with a chisel from the back and knock the bottom out. And she blows. Just push it back in to get it out. You gotta be quick. Okay, so we're going to strip the old one down and put the new one in. Have a look at the box and you get the strut itself. Ultima 4x4, and these come with 100Ks or 2 years warranty, and from the reviews I'm being told that they have reasonable comfort, and it can carry a reasonable load, so it's perfect for what I need it for. Just basic touring, bit of sand driving, taking the kids out on a weekend, all those sorts of things. In the bag we get 2 bushes with a chamfer. They just go in the ends, one in one side, one in the other, and you put the original bolt back through into the frame. And then we have 2 bushes with a little ridge on each side of them. They go together, go through the frame, so lock them in the frame, and then a plate on each side. Right. So first of all, we're going to take the original top off to find the right. There we go. Not sure whether this is going to come off straight away. Might need to just go and put some inox on that. 1 minute. Okay, so I've just sprayed the end with some WD-40 or inox. Now I'm going to remove this. Came off quite easy. So yeah, that's pretty short on the end. Starting to go. Anyway, that can go in the bin. Alright then. So first job is to take that off, and it will extend. And don't worry about it, it'll go the full way and stop, so don't worry about it coming out. It shouldn't do. There you go, stopped. Take off the protective cover off the end of the thread. And be careful not to damage the thread, because that's going to ruin the whole process if you do. Okay, so first of all, plate, and you'll see that it's concave, so concave side up, and the bush, those little dots there go onto the plate, and that bit goes up to go through the frame, and that's ready to go in. So you put that up into the frame like so. So that would go slot towards the chassis, and these parts will stick down away from the body, so that will go on like that. And as you'll see, the rubber just sort of sits in that hole. Then rubber goes on with the ridge down into the hole, plate on top, and then we just put the nut in place. We just need to put on a bit of Loctite. We need a little bit lower this. In fact, we're almost out of it. Just enough to do the job. Okay. Not on. I think this is a slightly smaller size than the original. 17mm. Other one was 19. Alright, what you want to do is nip them up so you start to see the bushes compress a little bit, not too much, be too tight. As soon as you start to see them, there's a bit of concave in them, start to round, that's where you want them. That shouldn't move now, that Loctite will dry and that won't go anywhere. Put it back on the car and then we'll go for a test drive. Okay, you can see up there, this is where the plate screws into, and the end of the shock absorber with the nut that we just tightened goes through that hole. Alright, that was a bit of a struggle because you have to push the shock absorber back in whilst you're trying to wiggle it around, which isn't that easy. Job done. So I'm just going to show you another thing that came up on the report which wasn't quite as it seems. So these things here, the sway bar links, and it said on the report that they needed replacing and the bushes were cracked. On inspection I noticed that there was nothing actually wrong with the bushes, but one thing I did pick up, that the plate on the top was loose and everything was rattling about, and actually the whole thing was just loose. So I tightened up the bolt at the top and it's compressed it back together and it's made a big difference. So make sure that you go and check the report, because not everything that they picked up was actually correct. Okay, so we just jumped in the car and we're just going to take it for a quick test drive. Quite excited to see what the difference is, to be honest. The original suspension's been on this since I had it So we'll soon see if there's a difference. It's always going to be creaks and things like that in an old car, but let's see if the vibration's gone. There's plenty of speed humps where we live. There's actually one right at the end of our roads here, so we'll go over that and see what happens. Yeah, a little bit of an improvement, not the harsh thumping through the body. Steering's a bit more direct. Still getting the usual creaks and groans when you're going over bumps, or the plastics moving about and things like that you'd expect from an old car. But yeah, pretty good. I'm just powering up the hill now, and the steering feels much better than it did before. Much better. Yeah, there's less movement in the steering wheel. There was quite a lot of play, and that's probably the bushes that were deteriorating and not holding properly. So now when I go from left to right, the steering's responding much better. So these things are pretty good. They don't have a huge amount of power. I'm actually considering putting a turbo kit on it, so we'll probably do that next year. I'm just waiting to get my new garage built, and when we've done that, then we'll probably start on that project. So yeah, so hopefully we can start that project in the next few months and give this a bit more power. Probably be a bit better for towing, so we're probably going to get a caravan again to do a bit of touring, so when we do that I can use this and not have to worry so much about the fuel bills, as you do get a bit more torque when you put a turbo on, which means you're not revving the engine as much, which obviously means you're not using as much petrol. So although the fun factor is pretty good, I'm just as interested in the economical side of it. I think it might, you know, take 20% off the fuel bill or something like that. It's not major, but it all helps, and it gives you a bit more power for when you need it. Don't really do too much in the car other than some light touring. Go down, do a bit of beach driving, fishing, go over to Fraser Island now and again, go camping with the kids, that sort of thing. I don't really do any extreme off-road. I've got no interest in any of that. Just use it as a family vehicle or a vehicle to go fishing with the lads. And just enjoy the outdoors. So it doesn't really need to be top spec, it just needs to be reliable, and just enable me to get about. That's why I want to put the turbo on it. You know, I've considered over the years whether I should get, you know, a Landcruiser, the new V8 model, and I just look at even the oldest ones of that particular 200 range, and you're still going to looking at 30-40 grand for a high mileage vehicle. I just can't justify it. I've got better things to spend my money on, so I've decided that we'll stick with this one for now. We'll do all the bits of work to get it mechanically sound, put a turbo on it, and then this is good enough to go anywhere and do anything that one of the more expensive models can do. Okay, so as you can see, it was quite a straightforward process to change out the shock absorbers. In the next video, we're going to focus on changing the suspension bushes that I've mentioned in the list. And in the past, I've done this probably the hard way. There's a couple of different ways you can approach it. But the hard way is to take off the component, cut out the rubber, and then hacksaw out the casing which goes around the rubber, and then chisel that part out. That's very time consuming and quite difficult to do, but it is possible. It's just the hard way of doing it. If you've got access to a bush press or a press that where you can push the bush out, it's much easier. Push it out, clean it all up, lube it, and then push the new bush back in is a lot easier than doing it the way I've been doing it. So I'm probably going to travel up to my uncle's workshop, who's got all the correct tools, and we'll do it there. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, press the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.